And welcome into another edition of the On the Mic podcast with my MMA news. I am Mike Pendleton, and my next guest starting his UFC career off with a bang, fight of the night, and a compliment of the weekend when his teammate and broadcaster Laura Sanko pretty much agreed that he's the best looking dude in the flyweight division. I mean, he's here, so I got to agree as well. He is Jeff Molina. Sir, how are you?
My dude, thank you. I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good. I'm good, man. Well, a lot that I want to talk to you about this fight and your UFC debut. First and foremost, all right, so you got the Contender Series win. You move on, you get this fight here. Not saying first fight jitters or anything like this. I know you've been doing this for a very long time, but to be on the big stage and especially back in front of fans, given the state of the world that we're in, what's it like having that first UFC fight under your belt now?
Man, it's feels really good. I'm not gonna lie. I feel after Contender Series, man, I signed the contract for my debut the day after Contender Series. It was supposed to be in November. The date was November 14th. That fell through because of COVID. We rescheduled for January 20th. That got rescheduled because of COVID, or that actually got scrapped because of COVID. And then finally, I had my debut this past weekend, and man, it feels good, but it's also like a sigh of relief. Like, not that like I got it out of the way, but man, like fuck, I've been wanting this for so long and so bad that I'm just happy I got to do it. And that the debut's set. It's done. It's over. I made a post. I think on this past week for fight week, and it was like, I know I belong here. I just got to prove to the rest of the world that I belong here, fighting the very best people. And I think I did that.
You absolutely did that. Fight of the night in your debut. So now, where does it go from here? Every fight you're getting a $50,000 bonus. Is that how it goes now?
Man, I'll take it. I want performance of the nights from here on out. I want longevity in the sport, and I can't be getting hit that much in my fights, man. I want to be able to write a check when I'm older and not have problems talking, so I'll take that as my debut. I'll take the fight of the night, and I'm going to learn from this, and I'll get better. I shouldn't be the guy to point to the ground at the last 10 seconds and slug it out. I think that may have won me the 50 G's. However, it's just that doesn't give you longevity in the sport, but I'll take performance of the nights from here on out.
Well, I love your mindset. We'll talk about that in a second. What was the overall vibe and atmosphere around not just your team, but those around the UFC? Did you hear from anyone after your debut? I mean, we'll talk about your division, man, but the flyweight division and really the UFC needs to continue to bring in, fighters like yourself, no matter what weight class. So what was kind of the vibe around you after this win?
Man, it's been awesome. Not just with the UFC, but fans in general. I've always had a very fan-friendly fighting style. Always. Like, I had my first fight when I was 15. And that was the epitome of what people want to see. I mean, there wasn't much technique back then, but it was aggressive and it was violent, and nothing's changed from that aspect as far as my fighting style. I think I'm 24 fights deep, something around there. And if you include my kickboxing, my Muay Thai when I was underage, and then my amateur MMA and pro MMA, never been in a boring fight, man. So the fan-friendly style is paying off. I always thought when I made it to the UFC, I would be bonus friendly, and I wasn't wrong. So it's really cool to get all this love from fans. I'm getting messages from all over the world, man. I'm getting messages from 10-year-old kids that want to do mixed martial arts, and they're asking me for advice from South America, from Spain, from Canada. Like that's really cool, man. And yeah, all the love I'm getting, it's fucking awesome.
Well, it's well deserved as well, man. And you are what, 23 years old?
Yeah, 23.
So at 23, man, one of the things that stood out to me following your fight and reading some stuff from you post-fight is, how do you have that mindset? Exactly what you just told me, man. Like, I want to be able to write a check. I don't want problems talking. Like, man, we live in in this country where football is so dominant, and, now the UFC is really getting, mainstream attention, being on the ESPN platform. As much as we love the violence and the chaos, we don't hear people, especially at your age, talk about long-term health status, moving forward out of their career. So at 23, man, what was it for you, or where did it click for you? Like, this is great. I want to win bonuses. I want to put on exciting fights, but my health long-term is the most important.
Yeah, for sure. I think it stems from a couple things, man. I think it stems from how long I've been doing this. I've been doing this since I was 14. And when I say doing this, I mean doing this. Like, I'm obsessed with the sport. There's not a day that goes by where MMA doesn't cross my mind. Even on this little vacation I'm taking on after the fight, it's like, dude, I'm still watching fights. Like, I've watched my fight maybe 100 times, and I rewatched the whole 261 card at 6 a.m. in the morning this morning. So, like, man, when I say I've been doing this since I was 14, I mean, I've been obsessed with this game since I was 14. I watch film all the time. I'm always looking to improve on technique. It means just watching YouTube videos. And then I'm also training every single day, man. I think in the last 10 years, the longest I've taken off in the gym was a week. So it was 7 days straight. And that was for my 21st birthday. I was out of the country. So, yeah, I'm just obsessed with this, man. So since I've been doing this for so long, I've seen the horror stories firsthand with teammates. And I don't want that. You know, it's not the years on the car. It's the miles. And I don't have many miles on me. But if I keep fighting like I did on Saturday, I will. And I don't want that. And funny enough, man, like, I pictured me doing the pointing to the ground, the Holloway thing thousands of times within the last couple months. And it always ended with me getting rocked. And the same exact thing happened on Saturday. And I told myself the last 2 months is like, if I were to get into that type of firefight with this guy, it puts the odds at 50-50. And why even do that? But on one hand, I think that won me the bonus just for the back and forth. So it's like, was getting hurt at the last 10 seconds of the third round that you're clearly 10-8ing worth the 50 G's? It might be. I don't know. But I'm going to learn from this, man. And then the other aspect was I have James Krause as a corner, man. That's a cheat code to have as a coach and a corner and a mentor. And he preaches that all the time, man. My fighting style is usually slick and sexy, right? It's like, it's a lot of sniping. But I also wanted to show that, dude, I got that dog in me. Like, I've been doing this since I was 14. And the way I used to spar when I was 14, it was with people that trained at Pat Militich's gym, you know, from the old days. So they sparred hard. And I was 14 getting my shit cracked every day. I would go to school every day with a headache. So I'm about the dog fight too. So if you want to put it on the table, we'll put it on the table and we can go. But obviously that's not the smartest thing to do. So I'm going to learn from this, man.
Well, absolutely, man. And we'll talk about your fighting style here in a second. But when you look at what transpired, though, in that fight and kind of your mentality towards the fights, you talked about doing the Max Holloway pointing at the ground. So I got to ask, because we speaking of that guy, we saw him put in probably the greatest performance of his career against Calvin Kattar and said did no sparring. So for you, you talked about sparring at 14 years old and going to school with headaches. Is that something you've changed up now in your training? I have the utmost respect for James Krause. I want to talk to you about him in a second, but is that something you're conscious about now when you're in camp?
100%, 100%, man. It's something I've changed within the last, I want to say 2 to 3 years. I used to feel like I had to spar with everybody and anybody. And especially growing up in the sport when I was 120 pounds soaking wet, probably not a good idea to spar with heavyweights, you know? But that's not the way I used to look at it. It was like, get the rounds in, don't be a bitch. And, you know, I learned from that. Don't get me wrong, man. And I think it's important, especially early on in someone's career, if they're new to the sport, to get the sparring rounds in. But we're hearing it a lot with people like Holloway, Poirier. There's a lot of guys that have slowed down on the sparring. Because after a certain point, it's more detrimental than it is helping you. Like, I know how to fight, dude. Like, I could legit take this week off. I don't drink, but if I were to drink, you know, I eat food. That's my problem is I'm a fat kid at heart. So I could take a whole week like I'm doing right now of eating whatever I like, go to the gym Saturday, which I'll be there Saturday morning, and still spar. Like, I know how to fight. I could do that coming off the couch after eating a pizza. So it's ingrained in me. But the reason it's ingrained in me is because I've been doing it for so long, man. I know how to bite down on my mouthpiece. So there's two sides to it, man. I do think it's important for those not the amateur, but like early on in your career to get those sparring rounds in, and maybe sometimes a little hard sparring, you know. I think that teaches you how to take a shot and keep coming forward, and it stops. We call it taking pictures, right? When you start blinking a lot, like a lot of newer guys would do that is when they're sparring for the first time, is they're blinking a lot. obviously because things are flying at their face, so that's just natural. But and also like spinning around and around, you never want to do that. So little things like that, hard sparring helps, but at a certain point, it's more detrimental, man. You're just you're taking damage in everyday practice when you should be saving that for when you're getting paid.
Right, exactly. And with that mindset, man, the thing is for people like myself, no matter if it's interviewing or writing or whatever, I'm still a fan of the sport. And you kind of talked about your fighting style. Man, I don't know that I've watched a fight on such a stacked pay-per-view card like I did early on in the night. And the only thing I could say was fucking beautiful watching your striking display. I mean, you called it a sniper, dude. I think it's exactly that. And I'm not just saying this because you're here on camera. I was sitting with family and I'm just like, are you guys seeing this? Do you see how smooth this is? So, credit to you for that, man. And you kind of talked about him, your coach, James Krause, and kind of the mentality and mindset. You called him a cheat code. And I've known James for a while. I don't know if there's been a better description ever for James Krause. Being at Glory MMA and having James Krause as your coach, like, what has James Krause meant to you as a coach and your career?
Oh, man, dude, Krause is it's hard to put into words. That man almost single-handedly changed my life. I owe a lot to him. Yeah, he's a friend, a coach, a mentor, man. Someone, he's one of those guys that if he tells me to do something, I'm no questions asked, I'm going to do it. I don't care if he tells me, if he were to call a jumping, spinning, flying round kick in the middle of a fight, I'm going to fucking try it. I might not do it correctly, but I'm going to do it, He's just one of those guys, man. He's inspiring. His work ethic. He's a guy that leads from the front. He leads the pack from the front. He's in the trenches with us every day, man. He doesn't skip practices. He's not only teaching practices, but he's doing all the live rounds. He's doing all the goes. And this guy is coaching 13 UFC fighters on top of a stable of other pro fighters that will be in the UFC here soon, on top of the amateur fighters and running businesses and real estate. And going to Vegas every fucking weekend for the UFC guys. I think he was in Vegas 6 weeks straight. We had a guy on the card every week. So, man, it's just it's hard not to be inspired from that man. And again, he's a dude that will do all that and then take a fight on 24 hours notice, at a weight class up above, or take a fight on a week's notice on Fight Island. Like, man, the dude's a savage, and he has all my respect, and I'm just super grateful to have him as a friend and coach.
What makes him, you kind of just laid it out, but what makes him so special outside of all the stuff that he does, staying busy, being a fighter and a coach? I feel like a lot of people really wouldn't kind of put that all together. Like, oh, his focus should be on his career or on their careers, not both at the same time. And man, to again, not blow smoke because you're here, but the reality is you guys are building something very, very special at Glory MMA. And, yeah, we have the world-renowned gyms that everyone knows about, but Glory's right there. What makes James Krause so special as a coach?
Man, as a coach, it's the selflessness. It's his ability. He has this really, and I try to mimic this when I coach and help my teammates, because I really truly enjoy coaching. And it's his ability to break down technique is like second to none. Like, he does it in a way to where, like, every fighter's different, right? Like, there's so many different characters in MMA, and the way I learn might be different than my teammate, So he has this ability to break down technique and explain it the same way in 11 different ways until one of those clicks with you, So I think that is a tremendous skill and an asset that not many coaches have, man. Like, you talk about these super gyms, and I've trained at a lot of these super gyms. Cross-trained, like when I was 19, Jason High and I, who's my other coach, UFC vet, dream vet, everything vet, pretty much, took me down to Florida. We stayed at the dorms at ATT, and it's just different, man. And our guys that are homegrown don't understand how good we have it because they've never been to another gym, So it's just from a coaching perspective, man, his ability to systemize also, man. So his ability to break down technique in different ways and explain it in different ways, and then his ability to make systems, right? So a lot of times, I'm not sure if you've ever trained, brother, but you learn something one day and then you never touch upon it again. You learn it and it's like you may do it that week. You might learn it that week and you might do 3 different classes of the same technique, but then you'll never touch it again. And that's a common trait in most gyms, and it's not with our gym, man. We systemize everything. Everything's organized. So it's just easier that way to go off a system, like whether you're grappling, to go to A to B to C and then rinse and repeat, and recycle. So I think that's what makes him an amazing coach. And then the fact that he's an amazing person helps his coaching. So he's coach of the year in my opinion. And the only argument I'd find valid is Trevor Whitman just for the 2 title fights. But even then, man, those aren't homegrown, right? Usman is not a homegrown guy. He made the switch over from Hoof's gym. So coach of the year, James Krause.
I love it. Well, and yeah, man, I've trained very little, but I have been like you. I've had an opportunity to go down to ATT and train, but I'm based in Chicago, so really Glory MMA is one of the very few Midwest gyms outside of
come through, man. Come through.
Yeah, dude. Like outside. If I was traveling more, man, I've had Mark Montoya chatter to come down to Colorado. Would definitely go to Glory MMA. Yeah. Because my thing is, and I've heard this a lot in the sport is, I'm not gonna act like I know everything when I'm sitting here talking to people who are competing in a cage. I'd rather get my ass kicked and go through the trainings that you guys are going through, even maybe on a smaller scale. But I'd rather kind of practice what I'm preaching, during these interviews. So I may step foot one day into Kansas City there.
Let's go.
Now, man, I want to ask you just specifically about UFC 261. I mean, you walked away with a bonus. You had a great performance, fight of the night, all that. But man, that card, just the card, and just really the monumental card for fans to be back. Mask, no mask, whatever. But for a sold out crowd in Jacksonville, Florida, for it to feel like 2 years ago in 2019 when we were putting on these crazy 3 title fight cards, and then you have 2 freak injuries to start the pay-per-view card, and then 3 amazing performances in that title fight. Will this be a night that you remember forever?
Absolutely. What's strange, man, and don't get me wrong, the whole fight week experience, the whole fight night experience, fucking awesome. I just this is gonna sound bad, but it didn't feel as great as I thought it would. And I kind of felt the same way for Contender Series, but it felt like another fight. It felt like when I was 15 fighting inside of some hillbilly bar out in buttfuck Missouri. It felt like my regional fights in Kansas City. It felt like, it just felt like another fist fight. Don't get me wrong. Everything was sick, man. I'm not trying to downplay it. Like having Bruce Buffer introduce me, and then like I was making eye contact with him and I was like, do I give him a fist bump? I'm like, no, I heard people lose when they give him a fist bump. But like just playing off the energy, and he's like nodding his head and saying my name and I'm nodding back at him and we're making eye contact. Like that's fucking sweet. Don't get me wrong. But the experience as a whole wasn't as, I don't want to say cool, but it wasn't as like great as I thought it'd be. It was great. Don't get me wrong. But maybe because I pictured it so many times in my head within the last 10 years, I just, I thought it'd be bigger, but I'm not the only one, because I asked Grant Dawson this, who's one of my teammates, who's future champ in my opinion, who will be a future champ in my opinion. If it ever clicks, if like the debut feels different than Contender Series, because he's at a similar path that I have, and he said, no, not really, man. Like it just always feels like another fight, and I was like, really? Am I never gonna be happy then? No. But yeah, man, it just didn't feel too different, but it was awesome at the same time, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. And I'll say this kind of to that point, maybe it doesn't feel as awesome because you've got such higher aspirations, and, without taking up too much of your time, just kind of want to touch on this a little bit before I let you go, man. You're in a division that needs talent like you, no doubt about it. Davison Figueiredo, much respect to the champion. We'll see how this rematch goes, but man, that 125 2 years ago, you almost didn't have a division, right? So to see them not only hold on to the division, but to have a champion like Figueiredo, but then to have talent like you at 23 years old, and getting fight of the night in your debut and making a statement on Contender Series, which fight of the night is one thing, man, but to have the Contender Series contract at flyweight and to do what you did, that to me, Contender Series just sells more because, you know, you're going up against maybe 4 or 5 other fights that night and you stood out above the rest. And I know he signed more guys, you know, throughout the episodes instead of just going 1 or 2. Sometimes he does 3 or 4, or sometimes all the winners get a contract. But for me, man, Contender Series just says a lot about the fighter. So when you look at kind of the landscape for you, especially at flyweight, how do you kind of see it going about? I know you've kind of talked about longevity, not just health-wise, but in your career. So how do you see yourself going about the flyweight division that stands in front of you? I think I lost you here. We'll see if we'll give Jeff Molina a chance here to come back. We'll be right back here. Well, apparently it is super hot in Miami. His phone overheated, but we got him back, Jeff Molina, man. And again, not to take up too much of your time, but I was just kind of talking about, you know, you have a champ in Davidson Figueiredo at 125 for a division that was almost non-existent 2 years ago. And they need talent like you at 125 because at 23 years old, fight of the night bonus. But also, man, for me, a big part of this sport that I think is overlooked is the mentality and the mental outlook of how you approach not only your next fight, your next 5 fights, but your path to the title and your overall career. And I think you've got that down. You've talked about the longevity, not only for your long-term health, but for your career. No rush. I mean, some people come in, they get the 50 G's. We won't mention the Irishman who came in and started yelling 60 G's way back in the day. And we see how sometimes it skyrockets them and sometimes that skyrocket crash lands. So for you, what's your outlook of your future at this 125-pound flyweight division? Because it's here to stay now, right? All the chips are in on Davidson Figueiredo, but that also means all the chips are in on young fighters like yourself.
Yeah, man. We've seen it time and time again where you get a young guy who's talented, has put the time in, but tries the rise to stardom to the, I guess, the path to the title is too quick. We've seen it with Shabazian. We've seen it with lots of guys who are talented, but maybe take that leap too quick, or they set goals for themselves. Like, I want to be a champion by the time I'm 21 or something. Man, you got to realize how this sport works. The very best people in the world are fucking good. You know, like everyone in the UFC is good. When you get top 10, top 5, they're really good. So I want to take my time, man. I know I can compete with those guys. I know I can do more than compete with those guys. And I truly believe I will be a world champ. But there's no point of me fighting a guy who's ranked number 10, getting paid Contender Series contract money. That's one thing. I want financial freedom from this. It's just not smart. Number 2, I need to work my way up to those guys, man. I'm totally fine with fighting every single flyweight. There's not many of them in this division to make my way towards the title. Not only am I getting experience from that and leveling up each time I fight, but it'll get me ready for the competition I'm going to face at top 5, at the championship level. I'm in no rush, man. I get better every single day. I'm in the gym every single day, twice a day. I'm in no hurry, man. And I got the best team around me at Glory MMA and Fitness. And my coach believes in me. He knows I will be a world champion, and we're going to work towards that.
Well, I don't want to be cliche. I try to do this whole interview without being cliche, but you know, what is the rest of 2021 looking like for you? Do you have a name in mind for your next fight? And when do you want to get back in there? How many times do you think you'll fight this year?
Man, I'm hoping at least 3. I was sidelined for things I couldn't control, right? That COVID is this pandemic. The fight game on its own is crazy. You throw a pandemic on top of it, it gets even crazier. So I want to say active. I kind of came into this fight with a couple injuries. I'm going to get them checked out this week. And if it's nothing serious, man, late July, early August. I turned 24 in July, so maybe one around my birthday. As far as who I want to fight, man, I wanted to fight Jimmy Flick, but he retired. So the dude retired. I think he was scheduled to fight the great value Figueiredo's brother. I like that fight. I think he just got scheduled with somebody else though. But I would like to fight the winner of Zaruk Adashev. I was scheduled to fight him twice now. COVID canceled that 2 times, and he's fighting Ryan Benoit. So I'll take the winner of that guy. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, you can sign me up for any of those fights that you just listed. Jeff, you really do have a bright future. And again, I'm not just saying it because you're sitting on the other side. But you know, there's something in me that when we can travel, and I mean, we could really travel right now, but when things really open up, man, I have it on my list to come down to Glory MMA and just really do a feature on you guys. Because again, you know, we could talk about the ATTs, the AKAs, you know, Trevor Whitman, you know, gym. We could talk about all those gyms as long as we want, but there's something special about, like you said, the homegrown talent and having a guy really as a coach so special like James Krause. So my hat's off to you and your team, man. And hopefully you talk again before your fight, man. You definitely got a fan, you know, not just this last fight, but based off your Contender Series win as well. So hopefully we'll chat again this summer, and wish you all the best.
Heck yeah, man. Thank you for having me, bro.